This is really crowded because it took me a while to find Callum and Skylimitz to watch the fight. Anyway, time for game two. Skylimitz, the only person not using a new deck, using Blouse because he's most comfortable with that deck. I have no problem with that whatsoever. It's actually a pretty good thing. Callum wants to use a second mulligan because he's about to misride. I said you could do a second mulligan if you don't have the grades you need. I don't want people to have a grade 1, 2, and 3 on a mulligan and then mulligan again just so that they can make their hand a little better. And we already get a glimpse of what this is trying to do. That particular unit means that this is the minus witches. Yes, witches as a deck now have like 2 or 3 variants because of what Bushiroad did. Now Blau comes in, he gets Morgenrot, check the top 3. He got a Blau from it, and he gets the unflip from Blau Kruger's skill. One thing that I should tell Skylimitz, I don't know if he knows, but it's just something I've seen him do. You don't have to have Morgenrot behind Vanguard in order to get Morgenrot's skill. He just has to be on the field when the Vanguard hits. So he doesn't have to boost the Vanguard for it to work. There are actually a lot of really dirty combinations you can have involving that, like putting Toolkit Boy behind it so Morgenrot is always free. You can also put a 10k booster or a tough boy behind there when you're at cross ride so that when you're at cross ride, or mound Blau Kruger so that it hits for 21. There are a lot of really dirty things you can do with Morgenrot if you understand what it can do. Like the card Borderline's Unfair when you know what you're doing with it. And that was honestly the one problem I had with Morgenrot originally, was I thought that it ate up all your counterblast that you want for the Vanguard, but if you know what you're doing, it doesn't. Going back to the other side, though, Witch of Banquet Lear. When a witch hits, no, I'm sorry, when a unit in Legion hits, then you can put this into the soul, search your deck for 2 grade 2s, and call them to rear guard. It works well with witches because they actually do have stand triggers that can unflip a damage and soul charge 1 when placed on the field if your opponent has, I think, 2 zeros on the field. So if you can do that, it's really helpful. I didn't see what Skylimitz did. I'm guessing he decided to use Mars over Morgenrot, because the fact that he has 1 damage tells me he healed. And this upside down unit is actually the 10k vanilla for witches. And like all 10k vanillas that are coming out recently, it has a Legion, which is why it's upside down like that for some reason. It looks really jarring and weird to see a unit whose art is actually upside down on purpose. It is one of the strangest things to look at. But it's a low damage game so far, which is technically within Callum's favor right now. Because as soon as Skylimitz gets to 4 damage, he's going to be dangerous. At the same time, you kind of want to do that while your damage is still low, so that it's less scary to get hit by that ability. I mean, that's just my experience, is that if you gotta get hit by it, at least get hit by it when your damage is low. So even if they do start critting out the butt, you're still gonna be okay. He got a blow from that. It looked like a grade 2 blow. I didn't see which one. We'll see it in the playback, but if it's a grade 2, that means it's a 5k shield, and he can intercept and replace. He decides to Soul Blast 1 so that he's hitting for 25. Goes for the rear guard. I'm guessing he does that. He did that because if Fianna Legions, that's the Dazzling Witch Fianna we've seen on the channel before, but still. He'll be able to counterblast to, well, not even counterblast to, after that. He'll be able to retire something in the circle, which Reality Witch Fam qualifies, and he'll be able to draw 2 cards. Attacking Fam and killing it early means that Callum won't be doing that so easily. He'll have to call another one from hand if he even has one. And now we have Legion. Legion versus Limit Break. It's interesting to say the least. You gotta really be on top of your stuff, and this is a particularly brutal Legion in general. So Counterblast 2, Callum chooses 2 rear guards and then looks at the top 10 cards of Skylimitz deck. If any of those cards are zeros, then the units he selected will be replaced by those zeros. And of course, if there's more than 2, Callum has the choice of which ones. It's a really insidious way to take a lot of triggers out of your opponent's deck really early. There's a draw, another draw, and a crit. If I was Callum, I put the 2 draws in, because if he puts the crit in, he can, yeah, there you go. If he puts the crit in, he can put it into Soul, which would not only get rid of one of the zeros on the field, but it would give him an unflip. Better not to do that, because the 2 draws went, they're gonna have to stick around the field unless he's willing to give up hand to replace them. There are quite a number of decks that have a hard time against that particular skill, or that skill set of the witches, and this is absolutely one of them. And Inspection Witch, Deirdre? Okay, Deirdre. He can... Okay, I was about to ask why did he say heal trigger. Basically, that's a Soul Blast 1, and then you pick a rear guard circle, and your opponent chooses a grade 0 in their drop, and the unit in the circle is replaced. On that particular one, the opponent gets the choice. So that's why I was wondering why did he say 0. I mean heal trigger. But that was all he had, so makes sense. The double critical saved him from being at 5 damage already. Although those are less criticals he can use now. Giving up 10k shield to unflip. I guess it's a good idea now just because his opponent's still at 2 damage. And unfortunately, we have to deal with some bad columns. Losing the earlier units hurt him. Sorry, I needed something to drink. He's no guarding. I was gonna say I don't know why you would do that, but a heal trigger appeared anyway. So no limit break. That sucks. The limit break was his chance to make a comeback. At least he gets Morgan Rot. But that still sucks. It just sucks. 2 triggers so far. 3 triggers. Wow. On the plus side, he gets to shuffle, so they aren't gonna be immediately put on the field because of the witch. I mean, the chances of that still happening are pretty damn high, but it's less likely now than it was before. Callum guarded the final attack with a 10k, so now we're up to his turn. I was actually going to ask, is he going to re-ride and Legion with the other one, or is he going to keep things like this? And it looks like he's keeping things like this for a while. I don't think he knows that it doesn't have to be the heal trigger. The person who activates that skill doesn't choose, it's the opponent that chooses. So he could have chosen a draw trigger. But at the same time, in this case, it doesn't matter. In this case, it really doesn't make a difference. He's no guarding the 25k. If another crit appears, then it's going to be a problem for him. But it didn't. However, Arias did. Did he? Did he attack the rear when he did that? Oh, he did. I see. He's afraid of limit break. Galaxy is definitely a limit break to fear if you're looking at your hand and you realize you don't have guard to block everything. I definitely understand why you'd be afraid of it, but at the same time, if he's not going to go for the kill, then he's giving Skylimitz a chance to prepare his forces to make the limit break better. I have no idea if audio other than my voice can be heard right now. I'm hoping not. Really hoping not. It's more busy. And I just saw that. There were no blows in that. That's unfortunate for Sky. I mean, that critical helped. I don't know why you'd... Oh. I still don't know why you do that. I mean, I guess he wants to be able to guard next turn. But he's at 3 versus 5. He should have... If I was him, I would have just went for the Vanguard. Because there was no way he was actually going to go out of his way to guard that unit for 15k. Not a grade 3. Not a grade 3 that does nothing for him in the rear circle. A heal went up there and a draw, so it's already 2. And a crit. Probably going to see heal and crit go. Yep. Heal and crit. This is the danger of this deck. He's probably not going to be healing anymore this game. Let's get a count. 1 heal in there. 2 heals in there. 1 on the field. So yeah, he's only got 1 heal left out of the entire deck. And since this deck doesn't Legion, he's not getting them back. Well, let's see how he takes these string of attacks. He guards the first one with a crit. He might no guard the Vanguard. And he doesn't get punished for it with criticals or anything. He can guard this, I think. But he doesn't want to. Having 3 unflipped damage in this situation helps him because it gives him Morganrot and Galaxy. And this is what I meant when I said that waiting made his limit break more dangerous. Now he's hitting for 16 on all sides. So it comes down to if Callum can guard this. If he can guard it, he might be able to set up to win next turn. If he can't, then obviously he loses the match. That's a no pass. That's another 46. The draw trigger helps, but the grade 3 doesn't unless he got a perfect guard from the draw. I'm gonna assume he hasn't gotten a perfect guard up to this point because otherwise he probably would have used it by now. I think Callum is going to go for a finish here. I think at this point he might ride Arias if he has one in hand and just go for a finish. Retire one of his Shadow Paladins, make the Vanguard lose 10k power. Because the entire Vanguard, his entire field is all witches, so if he wrote it, he does have access to the skill. And there we go. He can't counterblast 2 and make one of those units a witch. I mean, one of those units a 0. But Skylimitz is gonna have to block for a 1k Vanguard. And that's if he doesn't have one of those Soul Blast. That's if he doesn't have one of those Soul Blast units that can make something into a 0. If he does, Skylimitz will lose his intercept. Whatever he retires should be something he's prepared to replace. Since it was a front row. He could have the grade 2. Yeah. So now the Vanguard is minus 10k. And he had another one. Okay. That's 6. That's 11. That's 16. Oh, this is how bad this unit is. And the cost is so freaking minimal. He has a perfect guard. But can he block the other one? Without another perfect guard, I don't think he can. No, without another perfect guard, he can't block the other one. It's not possible. He has another perfect guard. Callum probably wasn't happy to see that. Sorry about the interruption. Um, a- at any rate, he rode Morgan. He rode. Why? Why? Skylimitz. Why? Why did you do that? You you gave up the match. You Sky. Why? You disappoint me so much right now. You've lost because you rode. You weren't supposed to do that in this situation. You can't survive the next turn. Good game. You weren't supposed to ride Morganrot, but that was a good game. Good match on both sides.